My daughter declared me dead after a plane crashed to sell my property. I returned alive with $23 million, and walked into her office. The whole office went silent when I opened the glass door. Phones stopped ringing. Keyboards stopped clicking. It was as if someone pressed a pause button on time itself. My daughter, Emily, was sitting behind her big wooden desk, laughing with two men in suits. On the table in front of her was a thick file, a stack of papers, and a check from the airline with more zeros than I had ever seen in my life. $23 million. I could see the amount clearly from where I stood. I held my walking stick in one hand and my own copy of the settlement papers in the other. My heart was beating fast, not because of the money, but because of what had brought us here. Emily looked up, still smiling. Then her eyes landed on me. For a second, she did not move. Her smile stayed on her face, but her eyes grew wide and empty, like someone had switched off the light inside. The man sitting beside her, a lawyer with a shiny tie, turned to see what she was staring at. He looked at me, then back at the photo in the file that showed my face under the heading, "Deceased." He blinked twice. I took a slow step into the office. My shoes made a soft sound on the floor. I could feel the eyes of every worker on me. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "Is that not the woman that died in the crash?" Emily stood up so fast her chair fell backward. Her hands were shaking. "Mum," she whispered. "No, this cannot be real. You were dead." I raised the papers in my hand. "No, Emily," I said. "I am very much alive. And the airline just paid me $23 million for nearly killing me." Her lips parted like she wanted to talk, but no words came out. The lawyer cleared his throat and tried to stand, but his knees knocked the table. A pen rolled to the floor. Outside the glass office walls, the staff were gathering. Phones were held up. Some were recording. Some were praying. Emily slowly walked around the desk toward me, her eyes still fixed on my face, as if trying to find proof that I was a ghost. "Mum, they said your plane exploded," she said, her voice breaking. "They showed us the news. They said nobody survived." I looked at her, really looked. The new gold necklace on her neck. The expensive watch on her wrist. The latest phone on the table. And behind her, through the blinds, I could see a picture hung on the wall of my old house, the house I worked my whole life to build. The house she had already sold. "My daughter declared me dead so she could sell my property," I said quietly, but loud enough for the whole office to hear. "Now I am here to see what else she sold." The room grew colder. Emily's face turned white. She opened her mouth to speak. "And that, my child, is where I will pause this moment and take you back to where it all began, so you can understand how a mother and daughter could reach this point where death, money, and lies stood between them. Because if you do not learn from my story, you might one day sit where Emily is sitting, thinking money is more important than the person who raised you. Let me tell you how it all started. I was not always a rich woman. In fact, for most of my life, I was just a tired teacher with sore feet and a small salary. My name is Margaret, but most people in my area call me Grandma Maggie. For 35 years, I woke up before sunrise, packed my chalk and lesson notes, and went to the little public school at the end of our street. I raised Emily alone. Her father left when she was 3. That man loved 2 things more than his family: alcohol and gambling. One day he said he was going to town to change our lives, and we never saw him again. I did not waste time crying. I wiped my tears, picked up my daughter, and promised myself that she would never feel abandoned. Emily was a bright child. Sharp tongue, sharp mind. When other children were playing outside, she was counting the money from my small side business, arranging the notes from the smallest to the biggest. By the time she was 10, she knew every price in the market. By 15, she could bargain better than any trader. "Money answers everything, Mum," she would say. "If we had money, Dad would not have left." I would correct her gently. "No, my child. Money shows who you truly are. It does not fix a wicked heart." But she did not listen. Children do not always listen. Sometimes they only remember our words when it is already too late. I worked hard. I taught extra lessons in the evenings. I sold snacks on Saturdays. Every little coin, every little note, I saved. Little by little, like drops of water filling a bucket, we bought a small piece of land. Years later, we built a modest house on it. It was not a mansion, but it was ours. The first night we slept there, Emily touched the wall and said, "One day, Mum, I will live in a bigger house than this." "There is nothing wrong with wanting more," I told her. "But promise me you will never step on people to climb higher." She smiled and kissed my cheek. "I promise, Mum." Promises. They are easy to say when life is simple. When Emily finished school, she studied business in the city. She made new friends, people who liked to show off. Expensive bags, expensive hair, expensive cars, even when their pockets were empty. I watched her change little by little. Her calls became shorter, her visits fewer. She started saying things like, "Mum, you do not understand this generation. You are too simple." Still, I loved her. A mother's heart does not switch off because her child is proud. It only prays more. Then came the day that changed everything. The school where I taught decided to retire some of us older teachers. They gave me a small package, thanked me for my service, and sent me home. I was not angry. My back was tired, my eyes were weak. But inside, I felt empty. One evening, my phone rang. It was Emily. "Mum, there is a group of retired teachers going on a sponsored trip," she said. "To another country. A big airline is doing a special program. You should go. You have suffered enough." I laughed. "Travel? Me? To where? With what money?" She sounded excited. "That is the good part. The ticket is free. It is like a thank you package for people like you. They just need your details. I have already filled the form for you." I should have asked more questions. I should have listened to the small voice in my heart that said, "Be careful." But sometimes when people show us kindness, we close our eyes to the shadows behind it. A few weeks later, I found myself at the airport, holding a small suitcase and my passport. The plane was huge. I had never seen something so big in my life. The lights, the noise, the people taking pictures. I felt like a small fish in a big ocean. Before I boarded, I called Emily. "My child, I am going in now," I said. "Pray for your mother." She laughed lightly. "Of course, Mum. Enjoy yourself. You deserve it." I did not know that while I was walking toward that plane, my daughter was already walking toward my house, with a different plan in her heart. Inside the plane, everything looked shiny. The air hostesses smiled. Children were crying. Some people were already sleeping. I found my seat near the window and pressed my forehead against the glass. The city lights looked like little stars under us. As the plane began to move, I felt a strange feeling in my stomach. It was not just fear. It was something heavy, like the air had changed. I closed my eyes and whispered a short prayer. "Lord, keep us safe." The plane lifted into the sky. People clapped nervously. An old man beside me gripped the armrest. Then, about an hour into the flight, the first sign came. A loud bang sounded from somewhere beneath us. The plane shook so hard my teeth knocked together. Drinks spilled. Children screamed. The lights flickered. The air hostess, who had been smiling a moment ago, now had fear in her eyes as she rushed down the aisle. The captain's voice came over the speakers, trying to sound calm, but I heard the tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some technical difficulties." The plane dropped suddenly, like an elevator with its cable cut. People shouted. Luggage fell from the overhead lockers. I felt my heart jump into my throat. I grabbed the armrest, my knuckles turning white, and in that moment, with the whole plane shaking and people crying around me, a single thought cut through my fear like a knife. This is how Emily will get her money. The oxygen masks fell from the ceiling with a snap. And that was when everything went black. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I felt was pain. A slow, heavy kind of pain that sat on my chest like a big stone. For a moment, I did not even know if I was alive or dead. All I could hear was a distant beeping sound and the soft hum of machines. My vision was blurry. The ceiling above me was white and bright. A nurse leaned over me, her face kind but tired, like she had been watching me for hours. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" she asked gently. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry like sand. Only a small sound came out. The nurse quickly lifted a cup with a straw to my lips. Just a sip. Slowly. The water felt like life itself. After a few seconds, the fog in my head began to clear. Where am I? I whispered. You're in the hospital, she replied. You survived the crash. Those words hit me so hard that tears filled my eyes. I closed them tightly. I remembered the shaking plane, the scream of metal, the loud bang, the oxygen masks dropping. I remembered thinking of Emily. How many survived? I asked. The nurse hesitated before answering. Not many, she said quietly. You were very lucky. Lucky. That word sat in my mind like a strange, unfamiliar guest. I was alive, but I had no idea what had happened to my things, my life, my daughter. Days passed before I could sit up properly. Doctors came in and out, checking wounds, fixing tubes, giving me medicines that made my eyes heavy. I was in a foreign country, far from home, and every time I reached for my phone, I remembered it had been lost in the crash. One morning, a woman in a dark suit entered my room with a serious expression. She looked like someone who did not smile unless the sun forced her. Mrs. Margaret Collins? She asked. Yes, I said softly. I'm from the airline's accident investigation team. I need to speak with you about the incident. She pulled out a chair and sat beside the bed. First, I'm sorry for what you went through, she began. We know the crash was terrifying. But I want you to know that the airline is taking responsibility. And since you are one of the few survivors, your case is very important. I watched her write things in her notebook. I tried to answer her questions about what I remembered. The bang, the shaking, the panic, the darkness. At the end of the interview, she closed her folder slowly. There will be a settlement, she said. Because you survived, and because the fault was on our side, the compensation amount is significant. I frowned. What do you mean by significant? She cleared her throat. $23 million. My heart almost stopped. Million. Yes, ma'am. 23. I stared at her like she had just told me the sky was made of gold. I had never seen 1 million in my entire life, and now she was telling me 23 million was being given to me. I touched my chest, feeling my heart beating fast. 23. Yes. Once the paperwork is done, your lawyers will contact us. You will receive the funds immediately. I let out a soft laugh, not because it was funny, but because it felt like a dream. A strange, unbelievable dream. But the woman's next words cut the laughter from my mouth. Your daughter has already contacted us, she said. I froze. What? She flipped through her papers again. Yes. She said you passed away in the crash. Declared you deceased. She also claimed she was your next of kin. My chest went cold. She said I died. Yes. She has begun filling documents to receive your full settlement. For a second, I could not breathe. My own daughter. My only child. The same girl I carried for 9 months. The same girl I fed, clothed, and sacrificed my youth for. How soon did she contact you? I asked, my voice shaking. The woman checked the file. Within 24 hours of the accident. 24 hours. She did not even wait. Not even to confirm. My hands trembled on the blanket. But, she didn't check the survivor list. I whispered. She claimed she was too emotional to check, the woman replied. But we found it suspicious. That's why we came here to confirm. I felt a deep, sharp pain inside me that had nothing to do with the crash. A betrayal that felt heavier than broken bones. My daughter wished me dead. And she was already collecting my money. Do you want us to stop her claim? The woman asked. I sat up slowly, my eyes burning with a painful mix of anger and heartbreak. Yes, I said. Stop her. And send all the documents to me. She nodded. Very well. The settlement will go to you directly. After she left, I stared at the window for a long time. Patients walked by. Nurses pushed carts. Cars moved outside. Life was going on like nothing had happened. But inside me, a storm was growing. I remembered holding Emily when she was a baby. Her small fingers holding mine. Her little laugh. The promises she made. How did that sweet girl turn into someone who could sell my property the moment she thought I was gone? A nurse walked in with my food tray. But she stopped halfway when she saw the expression on my face. Are you okay, ma'am? I wiped a tear from my cheek. No, I said softly. But I will be. Because in that moment, a fire lit in my heart. I would heal. I would get stronger. I would collect my $23 million. And then, I would go home. But something happened on the day I was discharged, something that changed everything again. As I wheeled my suitcase out of the hospital, a man in a suit ran toward me, out of breath. "Mrs. Collins," he shouted. "Wait." I turned to him with confusion. He held an envelope in his hand, his face pale with shock. "There has been a new development," he said. I frowned. "What development?" He opened the envelope and showed me a document that made my knees shake. It was something Emily had signed. Something worse than declaring me dead. Something that showed she had not only taken my things. She had taken something else. Something far more dangerous. And before I could even speak, he said the words that made my heart jump. "Ma'am, you need to sit down. This is very serious." I sat down slowly on the nearest bench, my knees weak, my heart racing like a drum. The man in the suit took a deep breath and held the document closer for me to see. His eyes were full of worry, as if he feared how I would react. "Ma'am," he began carefully, "your daughter didn't only declare you dead. She also transferred ownership of something very important." My throat tightened. "What did she transfer?" He pointed to the paper. "Your house, your land, your savings account." "But, that is not the worst part." I felt a dizzy wave run through my head. "She signed for a loan," he said. "A very large loan, using your house and property as collateral." My whole body went cold. "How much?" I asked, though I felt afraid to hear the number. $480,000. I covered my mouth with my hand as a sharp pain shot through my chest. 480,000. Almost $500,000. A debt so big it could swallow a person whole. "She claimed you approved it before you died," the man added. "She even provided a forged signature." My ears rang. The hospital building around me seemed to tilt. I could hear voices in the distance, but they sounded far away, like echoes in a tunnel. He continued talking, explaining legal terms, debt collectors, foreclosure threats, but I barely heard anything. My mind was filled with only one thing. My child did this. My Emily. The same little girl who used to hold my hand on the way to school. Why? What was she doing with so much money? The man touched my arm gently. "Ma'am, are you okay?" I wiped my eyes quickly. I did not want to cry in front of him. "Yes," I forced myself to say. "Please continue." He handed me the documents. "We stopped everything once we learned you were alive. But your daughter has been arguing. She insists she is entitled to your estate." I let out a long, shaky breath. "Entitled?" I whispered. "My own daughter thinks she is entitled to sell my life." The man nodded with sympathy. "She will be notified that you survived the crash," he said. "And that she no longer has access to your assets. But I think you should be prepared. There may be conflict." Conflict? No, this was more than conflict. This was betrayal with a knife sharpened by greed. After he left, I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. People walked past me, speaking languages I could not understand. But my heart understood only pain. I thought back to the beginning again. How Emily grew up wanting more than I could give. How she liked shiny things. How she loved the idea of being above others. But nothing prepared me for this. It took 2 more days before the airline finished the paperwork. When they handed me the settlement check and documents, it did not feel like a blessing. It felt like a storm. A storm that was about to blow open every secret my daughter had been hiding. The airline assigned a driver to take me to the airport. I sat in the back seat with my suitcase on my lap, holding the check as if it would break apart if I let go. The driver looked at me through the rear mirror. "Ma'am, you look troubled," he said kindly. "Is everything okay?" I forced a small smile. "Sometimes life gives you money," I said. "But it also gives you heavy things you didn't ask for." He nodded in understanding and said nothing more. At the airport, I boarded the flight back home with my heart beating fast. Every minute that passed brought me closer to the truth. I wanted to see my daughter's face when she realized I was not dead. I wanted to ask her why. But deep inside, a part of me feared the answer. The flight felt long. When the plane finally landed, I walked out slowly, holding the railing. The air felt different, warm, familiar, yet heavy with dread. I stepped outside the airport and got into a taxi. "Where to, ma'am?" The driver asked. I hesitated. Then I gave him the one place I needed to go. My house, I said. Please take me home. As the taxi drove through the city, everything looked the same, yet I felt different. Stronger, wounded, ready. But when we reached my street, the taxi slowed. And my heart dropped. Cars were parked everywhere, loud voices. People gathered in front of my gate like something important was happening. The gate was wide open. And inside my compound were strangers going in and out of the house, carrying my furniture. My chairs, my sofa, my fridge, my clothes. They were taking everything. I stepped out of the taxi, trembling. Stop, I shouted. What are you doing in my house? A man turned around, holding my TV in his arms. He frowned. Ma'am, the owner of this property passed away, he said. We were told everything here is for sale. I shook my head. I am the owner, I said loudly. And I am alive. People froze. Someone started whispering. Another person dropped a box and stepped back. Then, from inside the hallway, I heard a familiar voice. A voice that made my throat tighten. My daughter declared me dead to sell my things, I whispered under my breath. And now she is inside my house. Emily stepped out of the doorway holding a stack of envelopes and keys. She turned her head, saw me standing there, and the color drained from her face. Her mouth opened. Her hands went limp. The envelopes fell to the floor. But before she could speak, before she could lie, before she could run, a black SUV pulled up sharply in front of the gate. 3 men in dark suits got out quickly, moving with purpose. Mrs. Collins, one of them called. We need to talk to you immediately. Emily's eyes widened. I looked at the men. I looked at my daughter. And then the one in front said the words that turned the whole moment upside down. Ma'am, your daughter is under investigation. And there is something urgent we must show you. It's about the money, and about the people she owes. The crowd gasped. Emily stumbled backward. The 3 men in suits stepped closer, their faces tense, their voices low and controlled. The crowd around my gate moved back slowly, creating a circle as if something dangerous was about to happen. Emily stood frozen on the porch, clutching the doorframe as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. One of the men showed me an ID card. Ma'am, we are investigators working with the Financial Crime Unit, he said. We need to speak with you privately. I nodded, though my hands trembled. My heart was beating so loudly that I could hear it in my ears. Come inside, I said. Inside. Inside my own house, that was no longer my house. When I stepped into the living room, I nearly collapsed. The walls were bare. The carpets were gone. The cupboards were open and empty. Even my framed pictures had been thrown into a corner like trash. I placed my hand over my chest and took a deep breath to steady myself. Please sit, I said quietly, pointing to 2 plastic chairs that strangers had not yet carried away. Emily hovered near the wall, her face pale, her eyes darting between me and the investigators. The man in front cleared his throat. Ma'am, we need you to understand the full situation. Your daughter has been involved in financial fraud, forged signatures, and illegal loan acquisitions. The money she took did not come from normal lenders. She borrowed from a criminal network. My breath caught in my throat. Criminal network, I whispered. Yes. A dangerous one, he replied. And they are expecting repayment. He opened a folder and slid several photos onto the table. My hands trembled as I looked at them. They showed Emily entering a large building at night, meeting 2 men in a dark room, signing papers with shaking hands. Another photo showed her receiving a black bag. Another showed her at a fancy hotel with people who looked like they belonged to the wrong side of life. I closed my eyes for a moment. My heart felt heavy, too heavy for my chest to carry. Why? I asked softly. Why did she do this? The investigator exchanged a look with his partner. We believe she was involved in gambling and luxury schemes, he said. She was trying to make fast money. When the debts grew too big, she used your assets to negotiate. She told the lenders that everything would be cleared once she received the settlement from your death. I felt like someone had hit me with a stone. She wanted me to die, I whispered. Emily flinched, tears building in her eyes. I did not want that, she said quickly. I just panicked. Panicked. I looked at her sharply. You sold my things. You tried to take my money. You told people I was gone. You took a loan that could kill us both. Is that panic or is that planning?" She dropped her head and said nothing. The lead investigator continued. "Mrs. Collins, the group she owes does not care about the law. They will come for what she owes. And they know she declared you dead. They may come after you too." A cold fear slid down my spine. "So what do I do now?" I asked. "We need you to keep the settlement private," he said. "Do not tell anyone about the 23 million. Especially not the people she owes. They may try to force you to pay." Emily gasped softly. I could see the truth in her eyes. She had wanted the money so badly that she buried me alive in her mind. And now, even she was scared of the people she had borrowed from. The investigator continued. "We will protect you, but you must cooperate, and you must prepare yourself for something difficult." He paused before saying the next part. "We may need to arrest your daughter." The room fell silent. Emily's knees buckled, and she sank to the floor with a sob. "Mum, please," she cried. "Please do not let them take me. I did not mean for everything to go this far. I just wanted a better life. I wanted money. I wanted what other people had." I closed my eyes as tears rolled down my cheeks. A better life. Money. Things. These were the same things I warned her about when she was a child. The same things that turned her heart against me. The investigators stood waiting for my answer. The room felt like it had no air. I looked at Emily. She was shaking. Afraid. Ashamed. "Why did you take that loan?" I asked softly. She swallowed hard. "I met some friends," she said. "People who told me there was an investment club. They said I could multiply money. They said it was easy. I started with little amounts. Then I wanted more. Then I lost everything. They pressured me. They threatened me. I had to pay them back. I used your documents. When the plane crash happened, I thought it was a sign that everything could be fixed." She sobbed loudly. "I did not think you survived. I swear. They told me the news. I thought you were gone. And I thought the money coming would save everything." The investigator shook his head. "Your daughter is in serious trouble. But if she cooperates, she may avoid the worst consequences." Emily crawled toward me on her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Mum, please forgive me," she begged. "Please do not let them take me. You are all I have." The irony cut through me. All she had, yet she had tried to bury me. My hands trembled as I looked at her. My heart was torn in two. One half was angry. The other half was a mother's heart that had loved her child since the day she first cried in my arms. I wiped my tears and looked at the investigators. "What do you need from her?" I asked quietly. "We need her to testify," the lead investigator replied. "If she helps us bring down the group she borrowed from, she may be spared. But it is dangerous." Emily looked up at me with terrified eyes. "Mum, they will kill me," she whispered. The investigator shook his head. "We will protect her, but she must come clean." I took a deep breath. Then another. "Do you want to help them?" I asked Emily. She nodded weakly. "Yes. I cannot live like this anymore." I closed my eyes and whispered a short prayer inside my heart. Then I looked at the investigators. "She will cooperate," I said. "But I want to be present when she talks." "Understood," the man replied. He motioned for Emily to stand. But before they could leave, something happened. Something that made the entire room freeze. A sharp knock sounded at my gate. A loud, heavy, forceful knock. The investigator's eyes widened. "That is not us," he said. Another knock followed, harder than the first. Then a deep voice from outside shouted, "Open this gate. We know she is inside." Emily covered her mouth with both hands. The investigators exchanged a tense look. And I felt a chill run down my spine. The people she owed had come. The knock at the gate grew louder, each strike booming through the house like thunder. Every person inside froze. The three investigators exchanged sharp glances, their hands moving instinctively toward their belts where small communication devices were clipped. Emily pressed herself against the wall, shaking so badly that her knees knocked together. Her eyes were wide with pure terror. I could almost hear her heart beating from across the room. The voice outside spoke again, deeper and more frightening this time. "We are not leaving. Open this gate. Now." The crowd outside scattered. People ran away. Some hid behind cars. Some whispered prayers. The atmosphere became thick with fear. One of the investigators stepped toward the window and peeked through the blinds for a second. He turned back to us with a grave expression. "It is them," he said quietly. "The lenders." Emily gasped. "No, no, no. How did they find me so fast?" The investigator shook his head. "They must have been watching the house. They knew you were selling property. They suspected you had money coming." He signaled to the others. Code red. "Move now." The men formed a triangle around me and Emily, guiding us toward the back door. But before we could take 2 steps, the front gate rattled violently. Iron struck iron. The sound echoed like someone breaking into a cage. I grabbed Emily's trembling hand. "It will be fine," I whispered, even though I was not sure. "Stay with me." One investigator spoke quickly. "Ma'am, we need to leave through the back. Get into our vehicle. Do not look back. Do not talk to anyone." But Emily was frozen in place. "They will kill me," she whispered. "Mum, they will kill me. I should never have borrowed from them. I should never have lied. I should never have used your name." I squeezed her hand. "You will not die," I said. "I am your mother. And I am here." The back door opened. The investigators pushed us outside quietly. But just as we stepped into the backyard, the sound of metal scraping followed by a loud crash came from the front. The gate had been forced open. Voices filled the compound. Hard voices. Angry voices. "Search everywhere. She is here." My heart dropped. The investigators hurried us toward a black SUV parked behind my house. The engine was already running. Everything was happening fast, too fast to think. But just as we reached the vehicle, 2 men in dark clothing appeared from the side of the house. Their faces were hard, their eyes sharp. They walked with purpose, like hunters. "There," one of them said. "That is the girl," Emily screamed. The investigators pushed us behind them. "Stay back," one barked. "This is official business." But the men did not flinch. "We are taking her. She owes us. She signed for it. Move aside." "No," the investigator replied firmly. "She is now under government protection." The man stepped forward. "Then you will have to fight for her." Everything exploded at once. The investigators pulled out protective batons. The men lunged forward. Emily dropped to the ground, covering her head. I pulled her closer to me and shielded her body with mine. Shouts filled the air. Dust rose from the ground. A baton hit a stone with a loud crack. One of the men swung wildly. An investigator blocked him. Another tried to push us toward the SUV. My heart pounded like a drum. My breath came in fast bursts. For a moment, I thought this was how everything would end. After surviving a plane crash, after surviving betrayal, after surviving heartbreak, I would lose my life in my own backyard. But then, suddenly, sirens screamed in the distance. Sharp, loud, angry. Police vans sped toward my house, tires screeching, lights flashing. The men in dark clothes panicked. One tried to run. Another tried to jump over the fence. The investigators took advantage and tackled the one nearest to them. The police stormed in, shouting commands. "Hands in the air. Move away from the women. Drop your weapons." Within seconds, everything changed. The dangerous men were pinned to the ground, handcuffed, and taken away. The chaos faded. The shouting quieted. Only the sound of police radios filled the air. Emily sobbed into my lap, shaking uncontrollably. "Mum," she cried. "I am sorry. I am so sorry. I do not deserve forgiveness. I do not deserve your help. I destroyed everything. I hurt you. I almost got you killed." I brushed her hair gently. Even though my hands trembled. "You are still my child," I said. "You have done terrible things. But you are still my child." One of the investigators approached us. His voice was softer than before. "Ma'am, it is safe now. We caught them. They will not trouble you again. But your daughter must still cooperate. Her testimony is the key to stopping the whole group." Emily nodded weakly without lifting her head. "I will cooperate," she said softly. "I do not want anyone else to be hurt because of me. I am ready." They led us to the SUV gently this time. Emily leaned against me as if she were a little girl again, wounded inside and out. As the vehicle drove away from the house, I looked back through the window. Strangers no longer carried my things. The dangerous men were gone. The police were clearing the street. And my home looked broken. But I was still alive. My daughter was still alive. And there was hope. The investigators dropped us at a safe house where Emily would begin giving her full statement. She held my hand the entire time. Before they took her into another room, she looked at me with tearful eyes. "Mum," she whispered, "why did you come back after everything I did?" I placed my hand on her cheek. "Because a parent does not stop loving their child," I said. "But love must also teach. You will face the consequences. And you will change." She nodded and let the investigators lead her away. Hours later, I sat alone in a quiet room, holding the settlement papers for $23 million. This money was supposed to be a blessing. Instead, it exposed every truth hiding in the shadows. But I learned something. Life does not protect us from pain. Life prepares us for it. And even betrayal cannot bury a heart that refuses to die. As I closed my eyes, I whispered a small prayer. For strength. For wisdom. For my daughter. For a new beginning. And that is how my story ends. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with a mother and her child facing the truth together. Because money can destroy. But forgiveness can rebuild.